Paying off the house mortgage on my own was tough, so I had you cover it with your earnings. Now that the mortgage is paid off, I have no use for you. The only one I love is her, understand? Now get out of this house." The words spoken by my husband, with whom I believed I had shared many years of both joy and hardship, struck me like a blow to the head. It seems my husband Dan was unhappy that I managed the household finances and he couldn't spend money freely, acting as if he was the victim of financial abuse. Poor thing. Working hard to earn money only to have it all taken away. I would never do something so terrible. A young woman, who seemed closer in age to our daughter than us, looked at me with scorn, siding with my husband. Shocked by their words and attitudes, I was unable to move from the spot for a while. Despite thinking our marriage wasn't that bad, to be disliked enough to be told such things and even cheated on was unimaginable. At this point, repairing our marital relationship seemed impossible. I decided to divorce. After being told such things and cheated on by you, I can no longer stay married to you. Please, let's get a divorce. My husband quickly agreed to my proposal. As I decided to leave the house as he wished, he and his lover were excited to live together in this spacious home. Half a year after parting ways with them. Hey! What is this all about? I wonder what could have happened to my ex-husband, who called in such a panic. My name is Susan. I am a 51-year-old working mother who raised a daughter while working alongside my husband. Initially, I intended to quit my job after getting married, but upon checking my husband's salary after our marriage, it was less than I had been told. I thought we could live on just my husband's income at the beginning of our marriage. However, wanting children, the reality felt unsettling. Fortunately, my workplace was supportive of parenting, and my income was not bad, so I continued working after marriage. After getting married, I was surprised to find that our household expenses were much higher than I had anticipated. Naturally, I expected our expenses to increase compared to when I was living alone, but it was shocking to see more money going out each month than my husband's income. The likely cause was my husband's tendency to spend recklessly. He had a habit of immediately buying anything he liked. When you see something you like, you want to buy it, right? It's not like it's cars or jewelry or anything super expensive, so let it slide. Concerned by his frivolous attitude, I took over managing our finances. It was comforting to have my own income, especially considering how I'd feel if I had quit my job. After getting pregnant shortly after marriage, having an additional source of income besides my husband's salary was reassuring. Besides his spending habits, my husband was supportive in household and parenting duties. Our daughter grew up well with his support and started living on her own as a college student this spring. Just as our daughter left the nest, we finished paying off our home mortgage, and I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Returning to living just the two of us, and with the financial worries behind us, I thought of suggesting a trip to celebrate paying off our mortgage. It seemed like a good time to appreciate each other's hard work. With this in mind, I planned to talk to Dan about it over the weekend, not imagining I would be betrayed in such a way. The weekend I was going to suggest the trip, Dan returned home in the evening with an unfamiliar young woman by his side. "Welcome back. And who might this be?" The woman standing next to my husband appeared to be in her 20s. Could he be a subordinate of my husband? Yet, there was something off about it. As I asked, an unexpected response came from my husband. "She is Nicole. My girlfriend." What? What did my husband just say? A lover, even though he's married to me? I was left speechless, my mind going blank, as my husband scoffed and continued. "You've lost your looks chasing after work and household chores. I have no love left for you. The only one I love is her. But paying off the house mortgage alone would have been tough, so I had you do it with your earnings. Boy, you've really done a lot for me. Hearing Dan talk so gleefully was like a punch to the head. Without minding my shock, he kept going. You're too strict with money management. It's like economic abuse, not letting me spend the money I earn, don't you think, Nicole? Leaning on him as if she were supporting his stance of portraying himself as the victim, she spoke. Poor thing. Working hard only for all your money to be taken away. I would never do something so cruel. A young woman, seemingly closer in age to our daughter than us, looked at me with disdain, echoing my husband's sentiments. Unable to comprehend any of their reasoning or attitudes, I stood there dumbfounded. Dan, seeing me not responding, snorted and put his arm around his lover. Well, that's how it is. I'll be staying with Nicole for 2 or 3 days. Leaving just like that, Dan and his lover walked away arm in arm. Even after they were gone, I was too shocked to move from the spot. I knew the sweet feelings from the early days of our marriage had faded as we spent more time together as a family, but I thought our marriage wasn't bad. To think I was disliked enough to be told such things and cheated on. It's clear that repairing our relationship is impossible, so divorce seems to be the only option. However, we have a daughter, even though she's grown up. Is it right to divorce just based on our situation, without her consent? With these thoughts, I remembered my daughter was coming home for her university's long break in a few days, so I decided to wait and hear her opinion on the matter. Feeling troubled, I spent the weekend alone until my daughter came home. I'm home. Huh? Is Dad out? Feeling guilty as my excited daughter returned to her childhood home, I broached the subject. Actually, there's something I need to talk to you about regarding your father. The fact that my husband was having an affair, that he resented me mainly for financial reasons, and that I was considering divorce. Feeling pathetic for having to tell my daughter such things, I shared the events of the past few days and my feelings with her. I was afraid of her reaction and couldn't look her in the face as I spoke. But when I finished, she exclaimed, "Dad's an idiot." Surprised, I looked up to see her face flushed with anger. Mom, you did nothing wrong. If Dad had kept spending money like that, we would have been ruined. And yet, he treats you like the villain and falls for a young woman who pretends to be kind. It's unbelievable. You should divorce him before you suffer any more. My daughter fully supported me, saying I was not in the wrong. I hugged her tightly. She patted my back, saying, "I'm on your side, Mom. I promise." Her words and stance were so comforting that I couldn't help but tear up. That night, my husband returned from his lover's place. He was taken aback by our daughter's cold reception, but when she said, "I heard everything from Mom," he seemed somewhat relieved. I wondered what he felt relieved about, perhaps thinking his affair wasn't his fault. The look on his face, as if he expected our daughter to accept his reasons for the affair, disgusted me deeply. After a silent dinner, I broached the subject of divorce with my husband. After being told off like that and cheated on, I can't stay married to you any longer. Please, let's get a divorce. My husband nodded in agreement, surprisingly easily. As I was taken aback by his indifferent attitude, he began. However, the house goes to me, and you need to leave. That's my condition for the divorce. Feeling my indifference towards my husband grow colder as he continued to act like the victim despite his undeniable wrongdoing, I couldn't help but feel a loss over the house, which I had mostly paid off with my money. However, if losing the house meant cutting ties with him, it seemed a small price to pay. I accepted his condition, and in return, I stated, no division of other assets. Pleased with securing the house, my husband grinned and readily agreed to my terms. With this, you and I are strangers. Once the divorce papers are signed, get out quickly. He was excited about living in this spacious house with Nicole. He surely hadn't grasped the full meaning of no division of other assets. With a cold gaze, I looked at my foolish husband, chuckling inside about his poor decision. Thus, our divorce was finalized. After I left the house, half a year passed. Getting used to living alone and enjoying my freedom, I received a frantic call from my ex-husband. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Did you take my savings?" "Huh? What are you talking about?" Confused by his accusation, he explained with panic and irritation that the credit card company had contacted him, saying they couldn't process the payment for his card usage. Rushing to check his bank account, which was designated for credit card payments, he found his supposed savings nearly gone. Shocked to find his money missing, he suspected that I had taken it during our divorce. Of course, I hadn't touched his money. Listening to him, I first suggested the possibility of unauthorized card usage, but as I heard more, it became clear that this was purely his own doing. After our divorce, Dan had splurged on whatever he wanted with his credit card, went on expensive dinners with his lover, and traveled abroad frequently. Naturally, such spending would result in high credit card bills. The money I had managed and saved in his account during our marriage, he had squandered in just 6 months. Despite having saved a significant amount for him, I was speechless at his foolishness. As he talked to me, he slowly realized the extent of his spending, his voice becoming quieter. "So, I'm short on money," he muttered about his financial woes. To him, I calmly replied, "It might be a bit late, but you should start saving whatever income you get now. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon about the compensation." What? In between moving and changing jobs after the divorce, I had consulted a lawyer about seeking compensation for his infidelity. Things were finally coming together, and I was about to contact my ex-husband and his lover, so this was timely. As I informed him about the compensation, he began to rant on the phone. I heard him shouting about not having the money, but his circumstances were of no concern to me. It was his fault for betraying me with his affair and recklessly spending his savings and income without proper management. Deciding it wasn't worth listening to him anymore, I hung up the phone. Later, as promised, my lawyer contacted Dan and his lover for the compensation, and surprisingly, they agreed to pay without fuss. Given his earlier outraged behavior, I was honestly surprised by their quick compliance. It was a relief to have it settled smoothly, as any further communication could have led to unnecessary complications. Gratefully accepting the compensation, I felt relieved that the divorce matters were finally resolved, and I continued to enjoy my peaceful life. However, one day, my daughter contacted me with shocking news. Shockingly, my daughter encountered my ex-husband. According to her, as she was leaving university with a friend after lectures, she spotted Dan and Nicole lurking near the main gate. They seemed to be looking around, but the moment they saw my daughter, they rushed over with incredible speed and demanded, "Pay back the money we spent raising you." My daughter was so frightened by Dan's aggressive approach that she couldn't move. Fortunately, her friends were there to help, and my ex-husband and his lover couldn't do anything more and left the scene. That happened. I'm so sorry. It's a problem between your father and me, and yet, you got dragged into it. I thought the divorce issues had been settled, and yet, my daughter ended up getting involved. I felt regretful, but my daughter just laughed it off. What are you talking about? Sure, it was a bit scary, but the problems between Dad and you are also my problems, right? I felt reassured by my daughter's resilience, wondering whom she inherited her strength from. Although it was resolved this time, there might be actual harm next time. I needed to talk to my ex-husband before things escalated. However, when I tried to contact my ex-husband, I couldn't reach him. While pondering what to do, the situation took a sudden turn. The next day, while I was at work, my smartphone alarm went off. Thinking something had happened, I checked my phone and found that the alarm system at my new house had been triggered. A burglary? Startled by this first-time experience, I was then called by the security company. They had caught the perpetrator who set off the alarm, so I hurried home. After explaining everything to my boss, I was kindly allowed to leave early. Arriving home and seeing the person held by the security guard, I couldn't help but exclaim, "You too? Why are you here, and what are you doing?" Yes, it was my ex-husband and his lover being detained by the security guard. I hadn't told them where my new home was, so how did they find it? Upon questioning, it turned out they had followed my daughter when she visited my new home and found out where I lived. "Why the hell are you living in such a nice and big house?" "That's strange, did you steal my money or what?" I could only sigh at my ex-husband's persistent low regard for me. "Of course not. I bought this house with the inheritance from my parents." I had inherited a significant amount of stocks from my parents, who had passed away in an accident years ago. One of those stocks soared in value after I inherited them. I sold it when its price peaked, securing a substantial fortune, a fact I had kept secret from my ex-husband, fearing he would squander it. I didn't want the money my parents had left me to be wasted on such frivolous things. With that firm belief, I had never told my ex-husband about the inheritance from my parents. Seeing my ex-husband's eyes widen as he listened to my story, it was clear that my decision had been the right one. "If you had all that money, you didn't need to take compensation from us, right?" "It wasn't about the money. I wanted you to atone for betraying me." "But why did you try to break into my house?" Disgusted by my ex-husband's shameful obsession with money, I asked him about his motives, only to receive an answer that was equally appalling. It seems that to pay the compensation to me, he had sold the house he was awarded in our divorce. The house, due to its favorable location, sold for a good amount, leaving him with some money after settling the compensation. Instead of saving it, he squandered it once again. As expected, the money quickly ran out, and struggling for living expenses, he was persuaded by his lover to break into my house and steal money. How many times does he have to fail before he learns from his wasteful spending habits? As I pondered this, my ex-husband approached me with a pale face, desperately clinging on. "Please, don't call the police. I'm truly sorry, and I promise I won't trouble you again. Okay?" His desperate apologies and his lover's reluctant bow made for a pitiful sight. Casting a brief glance at them, I called the police. "I caught someone trying to break into my house, and the security company has detained them. Could you please come and take them into custody?" When my ex-husband realized I had called the police, he started to rage. "Are you kidding me? Didn't I tell you not to call the cops?" However, he was firmly restrained by the security personnel and, unable to resist much, he eventually gave up and hung his head in defeat. Eventually, the police arrived and took the two away. Further investigations revealed that they had also broken into other homes and committed theft. Evidence such as fingerprints from other crime scenes matched theirs, leading to a conviction and a prison sentence after a trial. My ex-husband was fired from his job and became unemployed. Given his age and criminal record, he would likely struggle to find employment after serving his sentence. His lover broke up with him during the trial. In court, my ex-husband claimed he was trying to raise money for his beloved girlfriend, but she decided he was no longer of any use to her and publicly broke up with him in front of the judge and spectators, leaving him shocked by her betrayal. Throughout the trial, the lover maintained she was not at fault and showed no remorse. Further, a search of their residence revealed plans for future burglaries, leading to her being seen as the mastermind and receiving a heavier sentence than my ex-husband. I don't know where they are or how they are living now. After their arrest, I sold the house they knew about and moved to a highly secured apartment in the town where my daughter's university is located. The convenience of both of us living alone means my daughter sometimes visits me. I enjoy my work and lead a fulfilling private life, free from any nuisances. I cherish the peace I've finally found, living each day contentedly.